a Bible college student and adjunct professor in Cincinnati, Ohio when I was born. Shortly thereafter, a brother who was trying to get a college started down in Northwest Arkansas prevailed upon him to join in that work, and that eventually became what we now know as Ozark Christian College. When I attended, it was Ozark Bible College. It's gone through a couple of name changes over the years, which has been in Joplin, and he was the dean of that college and professor in it for many years, and dean emeritus, and always in chapel until his death 2.5 years ago. So I grew up always knowing about Jesus. I was the eldest and a somewhat compliant child, never wanted to deliberately rebel against parents or teachers or any other authorities over me. But when I was nearing my 9th birthday, I remember I woke up early one Sunday morning and decided, today is the day that I'm going to become Jesus' child. I was baptized that day by my father, and I never looked back. Praise God. Praise God. By grade 6, I had decided I wanted to be a Christian mother and a preacher's wife like my mother, and I learned from her to cook, to sew, to raise a family with not much income, and to serve in the church. When I was sometime during my early teen years, I started being a helper and then a teacher of children in Vacation Bible School and Sunday School. There was a point during high school when I had to wrestle with the question, am I just doing this because it's what's expected in my family, or do I really believe it? And I concluded that I was convinced of the truth of the scriptures and who Jesus was, and that I would do it whether my family was doing it or not. Amen. After graduating from high school, I enrolled at OBC, and that fall, the National Missionary Convention was held in Joplin, Missouri. All the students from the college attended. It was the expected thing. During that convention, I committed myself to serve the Lord in mission work wherever he might send me. Also that fall, the college had a new missions professor by the name of Woodrow Phillips. With this help, there was a group of students that began a missions group that we called the Lord's Reapers. You likely know many of those who were a part of that, who went on to the mission field to serve, like Ziden Nutt, and, well, I dare not try to name them all, but that's one that's right here at hand that I'm sure many of you know about. But there were many others that were in that group who became missionaries. As the dean's daughter, most of the guys were a little bit fearful of approaching me for taking me out, so I rarely dated. Besides, I was known that I was a serious student, and some of them probably were afraid that they couldn't keep up with me intellectually. I'm not sure, but anyway. During my sophomore year, though, there was this awkward fourth-year student named Gordon Souders, who also became involved in the Lord's Reapers. He would occasionally sit down next to where I was sitting in a missions class, and I recall with some, well, it was kind of strange the way he asked me for our first date. We were working together on preparing the missions banquet, which was one of the projects the Lord's Reapers did, along with a group of others. And in the front of other guys, he asked me if I had someone escorting me to the banquet. Well, I could not tell a lie because I did not. And so he pinned me into going with him, in spite of the fact that he was not my first choice nor my father's choice for my mate. But he kept hanging around and wooing me with roses until eventually I could see beyond that poor, awkward, somewhat rude exterior to the sincere heart the good mind, and his firm commitment to serve God. And eventually he did learn to preach. And so friendship grew into love. In 1959, he finished his degree at the college, and I was between my junior and senior year. We had a friend named Don Albert who was working as a missionary in British Columbia, Canada. He had invited me to work with him that summer to assist in vacation Bible school and that sort of thing. There was a married couple from the college also going, and it was decided that Gordon would join the group. So the four of us, actually with another student who was going to British Columbia to join her family, traveled together across the country with a trailer and camping equipment, went to British Columbia, served that summer together. By the time we returned to Joplin, he had received an invitation to preach for a little church in central Missouri, and I went back to school to finish my degree. But the first day of school, he gave me a diamond to wear so that nobody else would try to take me. We also came back with a commitment to, after our marriage, to return to British Columbia and assist our brother there in the work. So the week of our wedding was also the week of graduation, and so it was a rather busy time for the family, but we wanted to have our friends from the college there before they left town as well. After the wedding, we spent a year trying to raise support to go to British Columbia with rather limited success. But we relied on Jesus' words, where he said in Matthew 6, "Do not be anxious about anything. Do not ask, what shall we eat, what shall we drink, what shall we wear? All the Gentiles worry about these, and your Father knows you need them. But seek first his kingdom and his righteousness, and all these things will be added unto you." So we determined to go to British Columbia anyway, with only half the support that had been recommended. We prayed to God, "Lord, supply our needs and help us to live on what you supply." With that, we left Joplin for Vancouver, British Columbia in June of 1961 with a 2-month-old son, a Volkswagen Bug, a U-Haul trailer full of books and wedding gifts to kind of furnish a household, and we traveled to British Columbia. We spent 12 years there, working for the first couple of years or so with Brother Don. During the latter part of that period, Gordon and Don were able to locate a piece of property for the college. We'd been meeting in a schoolhouse, and so we had limited access to a building and then other activities in the homes. But so they found this piece of property right in the middle of metropolitan Vancouver, which was about an acre in size, but it was rather an odd shape because it was very narrow. It could not be subdivided because it was so narrow, but it was quite long. It had on it 2 buildings. One, we later deduced, had been the original farmhouse, and this had ended up with, by the subdividing of the farm, not with too careful planning, I guess, because it could no longer be subdivided, and yet it was too large for most people's purposes. It not only had on it the little farmhouse, it had another dwelling house farther back on the lot that we learned later had originally been a chicken house. But it had been made quite livable. In fact, the people from which the property was purchased, it was 2 couples together, purchased the property and were going to subdivide it and found out they couldn't. But one of those families was living in the chicken house. So we converted the farmhouse with the removing of a few walls and some adjustments into a meeting house for the church. And our family, which by now we had 2 little boys, moved into the chicken house, which had 2 bedrooms and kitchen, bathroom, a